again.
Hello.
Welcome back. I'm Alyssa.
I'm Shannon.
We normally do that the other way.
Yes, we do.
So that feels weird. But
welcome to B Movie Bash.
Welcome to B Movie Bash. I'm going to say it weird every time. We had a really fun time playing the games last week.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
We hope that this goes out in sequence so that it is last week.
Yeah, so this week we are going to be talking about Hangman's Curse.
Oh, okay.
Yes, this came out in 2003.
Wow.
Yes.
That was almost 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That made me lose my breath a little bit. Ew.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go on.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, so we start off with a wall of text. Just, it starts off kind of being like,
we love text.
These are the people that are in the movie, and then it pauses and it goes, across America, there are select citizens secretly commissioned by the government to investigate strange mysteries, crimes, and unusual circumstances. Working undercover, they are known as the Veritas Project, Latin for truth.
Mm-hmm.
Dun dun.
Yeah,
and
no kidding.
When I was reading this, I was like, the dedicated detectives investigate the mission.
These are their stories.
So we see that wall of text. It starts off like that. And then we are suddenly given a sepia tone with a woo kind of sounding sad music playing over. And we see a kid walking down the empty hallways carrying a rope in his hand, right?
Oh boy.
And he walks up the fucking stairs. There's so many stairs in this fucking school. And it kind of looks like the school from Hocus Pocus, so kind of have that in your mind of like this big brown old school, right?
Cool.
And gets all the way up into the attic and hangs himself. Yeah. So he dies because, what else is the movie going to call, right? Yeah. We then see 10 years later. Of course.
Great.
Because, we have to. Mm-hmm. And we hear a very annoying metal scraping sound. Ugh. And we're back again in the hallways of the school. And you see someone looming in a locker scraping away with like a pocket knife. And they're drawing a very crude stick figure of a hangman in the locker. Okay. Mm-hmm. The scene fades to a bright sunny day at a high school football game. One player is telling the other players, like, this is the play we're doing. We're going to do this and that. But he kind of is like, we're gonna, and the one, Blake, who's one of the main-ish characters, is like, come on, man, we're gonna play what? And he's like, oh, we're doing this play, and he's like, okay, we do that play. But he keeps, like, fumbling the ball. He's just not doing very good. So they huddle back up again, and he's like, what is going on, man? And he's like, I don't know, you pick the play. And then proceeds to, when they're doing the lineup, and he's like, hut 24, hut blue, all that. He just starts, like, listing off random words, like, and they're all like, okay, what the fuck is he talking about, right? Like, definitely not football player terms. I don't know football at all, but you can tell. But I could tell those are not right. Like, I think he said like Grover at one point, and I was like, okay, he's and then starts hallucinating, like it starts looking like this super overexposed, like everything's really bright, but also in like a black and white tone. Okay. And he sees one of the football players, like running at him from the other team, obviously, because he has the ball. So they're going to run. That is the job. So he's running at him and imagines his face like really like contorted and super dark eyes and a noose hanging around his neck. So he kind of freaks out, drops the ball, and is like, oh my gosh, Abel Fry, and starts running around. And they're like, dude, what are you doing? I never got his name. They said it like 6 times, and I never got his name. And they're like, dude, come back, what's going on? And he's like, Abel Fry, and then like collapses on the ground.
Is that the name of the kid?
Is the name of the kid that hung himself? Yes. So
not woohoo. That was not appropriate.
But so he hangs himself, he collapses, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, and come running up to him. The team's looking at him and stuff, and he's like, it's Abel Fry, he's come to get me, blah, blah, blah. And the coach looks up to the principal, and he was like, is this enough for you, principal? This is my 3rd player. And you're like, okay, yeah. And so the principal, like, pulls out her cell phone and calls somebody. I don't know who the fuck she's calling.
Let me just call exactly the right person
and
I'm
moment.
Like, okay. What situation?
Exactly.
Okay.
So then we're suddenly taken to another scene. It's a warehouse, and a grungy bad girl with, the studded necklaces and all black, and her hair's done up in lots of bad girl curls and stuff.
My type.
And Another boy's following behind her who's a little taller, skinny, also wearing all the chains and chokers, and his hair is like spiked up like a 90s punk band, okay? Like in all the like
the
very
chunks of
spikes. Not just like, ooh, here's some spikes. No, it's like the thick
pieces of spike.
Yeah, like what you would draw a punk kid to look like in a cartoon.
There it is.
Yeah, that's it. And he's just bopping around like throwing his arms and stuff, and you're like, okay. Then there's a kid in a beanie and a bigger jacket following behind him and stuff. And they walk up, and a lady comes down the stairs in this atrocious blonde wig. It's the worst blonde wig I've ever seen in my life.
Okay.
Next to that of Geralt from The Witcher. And I liked him. I didn't like his wig. It was
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. And so she comes down, and she's like holding this gun like she's never held a gun in her life, right? And she's like, you sure he's not 5'0"? And the younger girl is like, does he look 5'0"? And she's like, yeah, well, give me the cash and we'll see, right? Mm-hmm. So they proceed to like start doing a drug deal, and she hands over 100 grams of meth.
Oh, jeez.
And the other two, the girl and the spiky-haired boy, are like, okay, we're out, bye, and they leave. So they go to leave, and the lady and the beanie kid are talking for a minute longer, and he's like, oh, it's going to take me this long to sell it, blah, 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 and just going back and forth, Yeah. And then the doors burst open, and the girl and the boy are shoved back in, followed by a guy with longer hair and a Sharpie cross on his forehead. Oh, no. and a shotgun. And he's like, look what I found on these two, and he holds up the biggest looking tape recorder. Like, if you took like a tape recorder from the 70s and had it like duct taped to your chest, that's the kind of like size tape recorder they had. It was massive. I was like, there's no way they were like, it had to have been in a bag or something, but like it was really stupid. Anyway, he was like, look what I found. These guys are, they got
taping them.
They're taping us and stuff. And so the lady turns the gun on the beanie kid again, and she's like, I knew you were a cop, and yada yada, right? And he's like, no, I'm not a cop, I swear. I'm so-and-so's boy. And he just starts like listing off the drug dealer that he works for, and the other guy is like, I don't believe you. And so he's like, no, it's true, and like goes off for a minute about who he works for and what's going on and stuff. And he's like, well, if that's true, then what if it, like, I wasn't even paying attention to the full context, because it really doesn't matter to the story, Okay. And then all of a sudden the police bust in, and they like do this whole big police bust, so everybody gets arrested and everybody's shoved on the ground and handcuffed, right? Mm-hmm. And then they find the meth on the beanie kid, so they're like, oh, he's got the meth, let's get out of here. So they take him out immediately. The police then proceed to uncuff the rest of them, because they were undercover, you see?
What?
Yeah, and yeah.
All of everyone else?
Yeah. So the blonde-haired lady, the guy with the Sharpie cross on his forehead, the two kids, they're a family, and they fucking Kim Possible this shit up. So they're just like traveling around the country.
So they could find out who he worked for and who he sells drugs for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Great. But they had to be arrested too, so they didn't blow their cover, kind of a
right.
thing. Yes.
Right.
So they start, to make it very obvious that they're a family, the girl starts like undoing her hair and like brushing it out and stuff, and the parents are like, there's our beautiful daughter. Aw, and I'm like, she looks hardly any different. But like, she literally is just brushing the curls out, like. And I realized at this point, I was like, who the fuck is that guy? So I had to go look it up, and it's Boone from The Indian in the Cupboard. So he's the cowboy. So I proceeded to call him Boone in the rest of my notes. So... Nice.
Okay.
That's who he is.
And he's the dad?
He's the dad.
Okay.
Which I feel bad. I should have just called him the dad in the story, because he's Boone. Everyone else is mom, the sister, and the brother. So, because they're Alicia and Elijah, and they're twins.
Of course.
So I'm like, I'm going to be so bad getting those mixed up in my notes.
If you ever have twins, don't fucking do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do it.
It's not cute.
No.
You're not Phil and Lil. You're fine. Like...
You don't feel a little DeVille.
Yeah, you don't need to do that shit. So thanks. But so they're getting all done, and the brother's trying to like brush out the spikes he did in his hair, but he's like, like, and the mom's like, I told you not to use that much hair gel, and the dad's like, we're gonna have to shave it off. Yeah, and that was a little funny, because like,
have you seen the movie? Oh, what is it? I don't remember what it's called, but it's like this fake... Are they a fake family? Oh, no. No, I can't. They're like on an RV trip.
RV?
And no, it's not RV, because it's not the one with Robin Williams. It's the one with Jennifer Aniston. And she, like, they're all getting paid to be like a pretend family.
I have no idea.
Oh, that's. I'm just picturing because the kid from that is. Have you seen Maze Runner?
Yes.
He's the guy with the eyebrows. No, maybe it's not. Maybe that's a different person.
Maybe
cut this part.
Okay. And
never mind. I'll find it, but you keep talking. I'm listening.
So, like, the family's getting all ready and packed up to go, and the dad gets a text on his Palm Pilot.
Yeah.
So
30 years. No, 20 years.
20 years.
What?
Yeah. So he gets a text on his Palm Pilot about a school and that there's been 3 victims and that it's possible paranormal activity, right?
Okay.
And so I'm like, okay, so we're very much in the realm of they go out and do this sort of stuff often. Paranormal activity kind of investigations, right?
Sure.
Okay.
There's a lot of lonely families on farms.
Yes. So yeah. So they go to the school, but it flashes to the school already, and we see the popular kids walking down the hallway, and there's Blake, there's the fat football player who I never caught his name. Mm-hmm. So I call him the fat football player, and
That's not very nice.
Well, he's a big boy. So he's walking down the hallway with the other popular girls, and this one girl's dress is this orange striped monstrosity. Whoa. And I was like, that's so 2003. It's so bad. It's so bad. So I just referred to her as, I just called her Orange Dress Girl for the rest of it, because I never got any of the popular girls' names. No idea who they are.
Okay.
I got the goth kids' names, but I just called them the goth boy and the goth girls. So yeah. Cool. It's easier that way. Anyway, so the popular kids are walking down the hallway when the goth kids happen to be walking, walking past them. So they start bullying the goth kids, because what else do football players do in 2003?
Bitches.
Besides bully people. It's stupid.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I'm like, I feel like we had a great high school experience in that I was friends with the popular kids and the goth kids.
We had known everybody since they were 5 years old, so please, bully me.
Bully me.
Do it.
Come at me. I'm not gonna say her name. Anyway, you know who I meant, though.
I do.
Yes. Anyway,
she wouldn't listen to this.
No, she wouldn't. She's a bitch. Anyway, so the big fat football player pushes the main goth kid. His name's Ian, but I call him the goth kid. So pushes him up against the wall, and he's like, they were talking before about how this Abel Fry bullshit, taking out the other football players and yada yada, like this complete bullshit, and the goth kid shouldn't be allowed to get away with it and stuff, right?
Sure.
So then they shove the goth kid against the wall, and he's like, I ain't afraid of no ghosts. Tell him to back off, and then steals his lunch money. And there was a lot more like back and forth, but it was a lot of like the same nonsense over and over.
Yeah.
So that was the gist of it, right? Well, the redhead goth girl with way too much makeup on, like they tried to make her as pale as possible to the point that I thought she was a 30-year-old in makeup. That they were trying to make her look younger because it made every crease on her face.
Yep.
So obvious. Like, it was terrible. It was so bad. And she wore the black lipstick, but like nothing else. She wore a little bit of eyeliner, and that was it. And I was like, she didn't even have eyeshadow. Like, she did nothing. Like, it was just white face, black lipstick. I'm a goth kid. Like, you know.
Sense.
So, yeah.
In the movie world.
So she gets upset and rushes out of there and stuff, and the goth boy chases after her, and he's like, hey, and she's like, I just can't do this anymore. Why do they hate us so much? And he's like, it's fine, it's okay, like, Abel's on our side, we've got him, he's gonna punish all these people for us, kind of a thing now, right?
No.
And he's like, all we have to do is tell Abel which one we want. So obviously they're sicking the ghost on people, right? Anyway, so the family's now at the school, and they're talking to the principal and to the local cop, who has been investigating this for a little while now since it started, and he can't figure out what's going on.
Yeah, principal's got him on speed dial.
Yeah, so they're talking about how they're going to be undercover and stuff, and they're going to be investigating the school in a way that other people can't, because they've got their 2 teenagers who can now talk to the kids and stuff, right?
Who are not going to school themselves.
I guess they're homeschooled, but they're all fucking geniuses anyway.
Okay.
Like, the boy like does a lot of FBI training and shit, but like everything that comes out of his mouth, I'm like, there's no way you've ever even talked to an FBI agent before. I've never, he was CIA, but like I've never spoken to like an FBI agent before.
Talked to a CIA agent?
He came to the hotel.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, he was previously a CIA agent. So,
okay.
Yeah, he's retired. Anyway, they're talking to the principal and the cop and stuff about how they're going to be doing some investigating and stuff, and they're going to be searching lockers and doing all this stuff, and the cop has a new partner on his side, and he's like, okay, who's this new partner? And they bring in their drug dog, Max, who is my favorite character in this show. Yep. And he's just this golden retriever who's like, hi, I'm a drug dog. And they're like, oh, okay. So, yep. So they've got, obviously this family would have a drug dog because why not,
Yeah.
So.
Wouldn't you?
Wouldn't you? My dogs are too dumb. So the principal decided that the boy was going to be the smart one who was going to hang out with all the nerdy kids and stuff, and that the girl was going to be the new popular girl, and so she was going to hang out with all the popular kids, kind of a thing. And so they're like, okay, yeah, haha, you get to be the dumb one this time, kind of just joking around,
Mm-hmm.
And they have moments where they write their sibling rivalry, not rivalry, but their sibling interactions really well, that I'm just like, they're siblings,
Yeah.
But then other times I'm like, you guys are getting borderline
A little too close.
yeah.
A little too weird.
Little Wanda and Pietro kind of. So they
Look
bang.
out.
There's no way they didn't bang. Anyway, so as they're like walking out, the like super nerdy kid, I don't know, I don't want to call him the super nerdy kid because there's a lot of nerds in the school, but Norman comes walking up to talk to the principal.
Well, if that name doesn't do it for you.
Exactly. And, wearing a sweater vest and a plaid shirt and stuff. And the principal goes, oh, Norman, would you mind showing the kids these new kids to their classes? And he goes, oh, sure, I can do that. And she's like, oh, he's the bright star of our school. He's, like academic decathlon, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, cool, And so he takes them off and shows them where their classes are. So Norman takes the girl to a class with him so that they can, because they're in the same first period together.
Mm-hmm.
And the other kid goes off to his AP class because he's so smart and stuff. And so they're sitting in class, and the teacher is going on about how, no, you can't pray in school because that's you forcing your morality on me. And the sister is like, okay, now I'm bugging. And I'm like,
oh, no. I just got chills.
I know.
Blech.
You just wait.
Blech.
You wait for this other girl.
No.
And she's like, that's not fair, because if you're saying I can't pray in school, you're forcing your morality on me. And he's like, no, that's not how it works. And she's like, that is how that works, kind of,
Yeah.
And so they're just going back and forth for a minute about how he's like, each person's morality is their own, like how they see things. And so she brings up like, well, if somebody came up and had a bomb strapped to their chest and they killed 10 people, would you say that's moral? And he'd say no. And he's like, well, then morality isn't subject to each person, kind of thing, like just kind of going back and forth. And the whole class is like, she's so cool. She's standing up to the teacher. The new girl and stuff. And like, anyway, the bell rings and the popular girls go up to her and they're like, you made him forget to assign homework. You're so cool. You should sit with us at lunch, kind of a thing. And she's like, okay, cool. Because she's supposed to be getting in with the cool kids and stuff. But Norman is trying to talk to her, and she's, like, trying to talk back to him, because she's a nice girl, and so she's just talking to everybody, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But the popular girls try to pull her away, and so she kind of goes with him and stuff. And then Blake, the football player, comes up and is like, hey, so, yeah, you're pretty cool. And she's like, nah, I guess, And he's like, so, do you believe in the hereafter? And she's like, yeah. And he goes, well, then you know what I'm hereafter.
What? No.
And she goes, and you're not going to get it. And then walks out the door.
Hell yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. Oh, and she was wearing a cross, and he was like complimenting her necklace and stuff, and was asking her if she was some kind of Jesus freak or something. And she's like, or some, And so she goes off to lunch. Oh, as they're on their way to lunch, the brother's hanging out with a couple of nerdy kids. And he's, like, showing them a math equation. And they're like, oh, my gosh, that makes sense. And I'm like, there's no other way to express that these kids are nerdy besides glasses and braces.
They do math between classes.
Yeah, so the fat football player starts picking on him, right? And takes his glasses and starts throwing it back and forth with Blake. And Blake is, laughing, hucking it up. And the popular girls are like, and the sister is like, this isn't cool, kind of, looks at him like, oh, I didn't realize you were one of those kind of guys. And so he stops immediately and is like, okay, fat kid, give him his glasses back, right? And I'm like, the only reason that this kid is a popular kid is because he's on the football team. He would have been the fat kid in school if he wasn't on the football team. So, like, for the fact that he's like, I'm so cool and popular, I'm like, it's only because you're on the football team, sir.
Yeah,
like,
you seem like a dick.
Yeah, like, anyway, so he's like, okay, give him his glasses back and stuff, and then steals his lunch money, the fat kid steals his lunch money and then walks off, right? And the nerdy kids are like, man, I just can't keep giving him money, like, they're taking all of our money all the time, right?
Yeah.
And so they go to lunch, and they're sitting. The girls are all sitting together, and Blake is like eyeing the sister across the lunchroom and stuff. And one of the girls in the orange dress that I hate was like, "Don't even try with him because there's a waiting list to date Blake, and like there's no budding and stuff." And I was like, "Why is he not dating anyone then? Like he doesn't have a girlfriend right now? Where is this waiting? Like is this a waiting list that you guys made up? And it's one of those like nobody can date him." Because we're all dating him, like kind of
where are his terms?
Yeah,
here?
like anyway.
That's creepy.
So the one girl is like, "Okay, let me keep telling you the story," and I quote,
"Oh boy,
the thing is, it ain't just a story.
Ugh.
Abel Fry was an annoying little jerk. He was feeling this girl, but she was hooked up with the best looking guy in school, who was also Abel's biggest tormentor." And I'm like, are you reading a fucking
no one speaks like this.
Nobody speaks like this. Like, I really want to play the scene to you because it's very much one of those like, did you read this line and they were like, good enough, we'll cast you. Like,
nobody goes out on the night before the death anniversary.
Yeah, it was so bad. And she's like, one day she just fronted on him big time in front of everybody, had him crying like a baby. And I'm trying to read this exactly how she said it, okay? And the other girl was like, so he lured the girl into the forbidden wing and stabbed her. And they were like, I heard gutted her, and then hung himself. And I was like, so he murdered a girl in school and then killed himself, and what? You know? Okay.
Do you remember in middle school, the like awful, maybe everyone didn't get it, I don't know, but there was like a CD that I got that was like talking about like drugs and stuff.
Yes!
And the girls are like, oh
Track 8 was my favorite, man. Like,
what was Track 8?
I don't remember, but I remember it being Track 8.
But yeah, there's like, there she was in front of Mr. Popular. Yeah, like it's just, that's what that reminds me of.
Is it the Dare program?
It's hot to not.
Yep.
I definitely don't have those songs memorized still, if that's what you're asking.
I think I might still have the CD somewhere, but like, I don't know.
Anyway,
so then it shows Boone and the cop and the dog looking through the football player that just got attacked. They're looking through his locker, right? Mm-hmm. And Boone finds a straw in there that he tries to get the dog to sniff. And the dog's like, I don't fucking care about the straw, right? But they put it in a little evidence bag anyway because he can see something in it, right? Okay. So he's like, maybe he's using it to store something, like maybe he took some kind of drug. So he puts it in an evidence bag, and then he finds the kid's wallet in there. And he's looking through the wallet, and the dog starts like, so he pulls out a $50 bill, and the dog starts, that's a thing. And he's like, what? Okay, so they bag that. But then they also find the stick figure, the hangman stick figure carved into it. And they're like, oh, what is this, right? So they're back in the lunchroom again, showing the other kids. And the fat football player gets up, and he starts picking on the goth kids again. Like grabbing him and shaking him. And
assaulting him,
in a public area. And the brother, the smart brother, the undercover brother, runs over to like basically stop it. And the sister's like, watch this, to the popular girls, because she actually likes her brother. They get along really well. I mean, they sibling fights, kind of dumb shit, but like anyway, she's like, no, watch this. And he tells him to back off from the goth kid, and the football player's like, oh, you want to go? And he like FBI pushes him onto the table and like has his arm twisted in a restraint and stuff. And he's like, you want to try that again, kind of a thing? And the whole class or the lunchroom's like, oh gosh, and yeah, so the goth kids like don't even say thank you. They just go back to what they're doing, right? Of course. Because they're goth kids.
They're
too cool for that. Yeah.
Cool dog.
And I'm like, and I hung out with the goth kids, and I know for a fact that they would have been like, hey, thanks, man. But they don't want to talk to the new kid in school because that's weird and we're angsty, and stuff. So then it goes back to the sister and the popular kids, and she starts being like, so what's this forbidden wing you were talking about? And they were like, well, it's the forbidden wing, anyone who dies there becomes forbidden, kind of in a place, kind of a thing is what the orange dress girl says. And I'm like, she's so fucking weird, man. But so they go to show it to her. They have to go up some stairs to get to the forbidden wing and shit, right? And it turns out that they've been renovating the school the last few years, but they stopped renovating this one area because they ran out of funds for it, right? So it's still like there's still the plastic tarps hanging up and everything, and like
great,
yeah. So, but it's a lock. There's like they've got a gate set up, so it's locked. And she like sneakily picks the lock while they're all kind of like, oh, what's going, you know? And she's like, hey, it's open.
Let's go inside.
Yeah.
Wow.
Woo! And so they go inside. And the one is like, if you look up the definition of forbidden, you'll get a picture of people who died snooping around. And I'm like, well, I don't think so.
No, that's not. No. I mean, sure, but no.
But no. Forbidden's more like, I have a secret there. You're not allowed to, you know,
like,
find out.
You were not allowed to do the thing.
Yeah.
Is what forbidden is.
Yeah, not people died snooping and shit.
No,
that's just white people in movies. So like, yeah.
Look up that.
Yeah, look up that. Anyway, so they go up there, and the sister, like, goes up higher into closer to where Abel had hung himself, kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. And the other girls were like, we're not going up there. But she's like, hey, I'll go up by myself. But she goes up there, and pulls a flashlight out of her purse because, you know, who's not carrying flashlights in their purse?
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess she's undercover, so she's looking for this kind of shit. So she's trying to get her flashlight to work, but it keeps fritzing out, so she's smacking it against her hand, and it lights up. And it illuminates this, like, super spooky face. Like, this, like, it looks like a mask, obviously. But we're supposed to be like, oh, it's Abel Fry, you know.
Sure.
Anyway, so she freaks out and jumps back, and then everything goes black. And she wakes up later in the infirmary, and her mom is, like, checking her out and stuff. And she's like, someone attacked me. And then Boone and her brother come running in, and they're like, what happened, you know? And she's like, someone attacked me up in the forbidden wing, kind of a thing. And they were like, are you sure you didn't just fall and hit your head? She did. And... I mean, when you're wearing wedges...
Oh, jeez.
That's very easy to
Joy
fall.
of 2002.
And a denim skirt. Yep. And,
oh no.
Yeah.
That brings back vicious memories of, like, being 10 years old.
Right? And I only wore, like, denim skirts. Like, I never... If I ever had to wear a skirt...
That went down to your ankles. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and clogs.
With the little slit in the back. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. We gotta move on from that thought. Okay.
The mom's asking the principal, like, why haven't you closed down the school yet? And she's like, well, we need more proof. The board is like, we can't prove that the football players weren't on some kind of drug, you know, like, you know. Sure. So, obviously, you can't just shut down a school because a few kids are hallucinating,
Maybe
you know.
Drug test them,
right?
Though.
You think.
You can prove that, actually.
You could, yes. So... Later on, we see where the family lives, and they live in this big RV that they drive around the country because...
They live in an RV. I'm telling you.
So they live in an RV, and the twins are talking to each other about how the sister is just kind of like, do you ever wonder what it would be like to be like a normal kid? She's like, I love our life, and I love helping people, and I love traveling around the country and seeing things, but like, do you ever wonder what it would be like to, you know, go to school, have friends, get grounded?
Actually be this kid that I'm portraying.
She's like 16, and like she doesn't get to be 16. She looks like she's 12. But she is the crazy one from The Roommate.
Oh,
she is the roommate, yeah. So,
wait, isn't it like Amanda Seyfried or something?
No.
Oh.
No. She looks like her though, kind of.
Okay.
Like if they were standing next to each other, I'd be like, "Are you cousins? You're cousins, right?" Like anyway, but she's just kind of going off about, you know, she's like, "Oh, I just want to know what it's like to be grounded," and he goes, "Well, I could probably talk to mom and dad about getting you grounded if you want, you know." And then he's like, "Is this because you like that football player?" And she's like, "I don't know that football player." He's like, "But do you like him though?" And she's like, "Well, let's keep talking about ghosts." So she stops.
The subject.
Yeah. So they're like, "Oh, let's just talk about ghosts." Well, the parents are inside the van examining the straw and the money under like a microscope, trying to see if they can see anything, and they can tell that the straw has these weird crystals on either end of the straw.
Oh boy!
And they're like, "What is this?" Right?
Pixie sticks.
Right? And. But the dog keeps like reacting to the $50 bill when they're holding it, and they're like, "Well, what is up with this?" And so they decide to send everything over to Dr. Al-Anon, I think his name is.
To a lab.
Algernon,
Ew.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a choice.
He's a character, that's for sure. They chose a person for this guy. Anyway, so the kids are trying to sneak out, dressed in all black, and the parents are like, "Where are you going?" You know, and they were like, "Well." So we heard some of the kids at school saying that they hear voices in the attic during play rehearsal, which is between 7 and 9. So like after everyone's gone home, they hear voices. And we were thinking of going and setting up a digital recorder. And the dad was like, okay, I'll go set it up. Because the dad is the janitor at school right now. So they've got him being the janitor to be undercover. Sense. Yeah. So he's got the keys to the school. And he's like, okay, I'll go do it. And they're like, Dad, no, we need to go like right now if we're going to go set it up. And it's fine. We'll just go do it. And he's like, okay, fine. Here's the keys. Like, I'll call the principal, let her know that you're coming. So, so the kids
say what?
Yeah, just like, oh, they're going. Well, because the principal knows that the kids are undercover too. So like,
oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
So
I was like, what excuse?
Yeah. Okay. So the girl, they get in the car, and the girl's obviously driving, and he's like, you should, maybe let me drive. And she was like, no. And he's like, I think it's ridiculous that you have to wait till like 2 weeks after you turn 16 to get your driver's license, kind of a thing. And you're like, wait, I thought they were twins, right? And no, it's because he decided to take some extra FBI training classes instead of driver's ed. Oh. So she took driver's ed and can now drive because she has her license, but he doesn't, right? Nice. And I thought, why are we fighting about this right now? Like, and he's just going off about how he's like, hey, FBI training and martial arts and yada yada should not be overlooked. And she was like, okay, well, you can beat up the car and I can drive it. I was like, that's kind of funny.
That's a good line.
That's a good line, right? So they're at the school and they get into the attic and they go to leave the tape and they hear this like strange chanting noise coming from the vent and they're like, this is what we're looking for, right? But then it ends really quick. So they have no idea where it's coming from. So they're like, okay, well, this is a good spot to leave the recorder, and they go to leave. But as they go to leave, down at the bottom of the stairs, there's a door that has like a frosted window. Yeah. And she sees someone pressed up against it. So she screams and then they go to chase after him, you know? And
she should know not to scream.
Right.
Come on.
But she does. And so they run outside and they run to the boiler room. Like, because they go all the way outside and tracing around and stuff. And they go to the boiler room, but they can't get in because it's locked. And I'm like, you have the keys.
Yeah. The janitor's
keys that can totally get you into the boiler room. But anyway, they don't get in there. And as they're doing that, she screams again because she sees a shadow and turns around. And it's the goth kid sitting on another roof that's right next to... Anyway, he's like, what are you guys doing here so late at night? You shouldn't be bothering other people in their business and stuff, right? And she's like, well, we're just kind of... and he's like, yeah, you better watch your back. And then disappears, like just jumps down and runs away. And I'm like...
You are also on school property after hours,
yeah, sir. Watch your business, right? And... so the next day at school, the fat football player opens up his locker and like immediately sees the hangman carved into it, right? Mm-hmm. He's like, oh shit, I'm next, kind of thing, right? And starts to get all nervous and he corners the goth kid immediately after that scene, they're at gym. And it's really funny because all the kids are like trying to do the exercise, the jumping jacks and stuff. And the goth girl's doing it. And the goth kid is like only doing it when the teacher's looking at him. But when the coach, he's the football coach too, looks away, the football kids grab the goth kid and yank him off. And that's when the goth girl notices, like, she was watching the coach and then looks over and sees that he'd been yanked away. So she goes to run after him. Yeah. And that goth kid is like, call off your ghost, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. And the goth kid's like, oh, what, are you scared now, kind of a thing. And then the girl runs up and she's like, goth boy, what's going on? And so Blake grabs her just to stop her from, like, running up. Yeah. And the fat football player immediately turns around and pins her against the bleacher, like the posts that are in the back, Yeah. And is, like, shoving her against it. She goes to pull out her cell phone, but she drops it. And she's like, oh my gosh, no, get off of me. And the goth kid's like, get off of her, right? And Boone shows up right then and sees what's going on. So he runs over and it's like, hey, break it up. And then sends the goth kids running, He's like, get out of here. And then he goes to yell at the football players. And the coach shows up and he's like, hey, boys, what are you doing? And Boone's like, I'm not done with these two yet. And he's like, go run some laps. Mm-hmm. And Boone's like, no, like, I'm talking to these kids, like, no. And he's like, they're my football players. So, it's just stupid. And so he's going off about how he's like, when do you have to be, a janitor to have morals and shit? And I'm like, what the fuck are we even, like, what
is the message here?
What high horse are you on right now that you're like, I'm better than you because I'm fucking a football janitor coach? Yeah, you janitor. And I'm like, Boone is like 1,000 times hotter than you, even with his dumbass glasses on right now. Like, anyway. But he goes to, like, kind of poke him in the chest and be like, yeah, well, I'm a football coach, kind of a thing.
Sure.
And, like, the weak are preyed upon, and they either get strong or they get wiped out, kind of a, I don't remember.
Fucking die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Boone grabs him by the hand, by his thumb, and like kind of twists it around where it like yanks it and stuff. And he was like, we're only as strong as our weakest link, wouldn't you say, coach? As he's like almost breaking his thumb. And the coach is like, yeah, that's right. And then Boone walks away. And
I don't remember what movie it is. I need to stop doing this. But what is it? There's a movie where someone is, She's the Man, where he's like poking the other coach in the chest. And he's like, well, that's gonna bruise.
Yep. I love that. That movie's so fucking good, man.
I love the English coach.
Yeah,
he's great.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yes. So then later on, the goth kids are upset and they're complaining after gym class, and like the one goth kid is like, or the goth boy is like kicking at bars and shit, and the goth girl's scribbling, like furiously scribbling in a notebook.
So angsty.
Because she's the artist and stuff, and she's not bad. The art that they show she's drawn kind of a thing, but I'm like, I as an artist, I'm never like
that's not how you art.
No, that's
well, I mean, I'm not gonna put that label on anything.
Yeah, it's just I'm like, what are you even like? You're just scribbling black lines right now.
You're just getting all your anger out for your therapist right now.
That's all you're doing. Yeah. And they're just like, I just don't understand what we ever did to them. And he's like, nothing. We're just different, And
we're
the brother
sicking ghosts on them.
Yeah,
cool.
Like they all know what you're doing. Anyway, so the brother comes up and he's like, hey, the janitor gave me this phone and says that he thinks that it's yours. Is it yours? And she's like, it was, but it's broken now, kind of a thing. And I'm like, okay, that was a fucking Nokia. Like, there's no way that thing's broken, right?
It's 2002. Phones don't break.
Yeah, like, not like that,
Yeah.
So he's like, you need to tell somebody about this. And she was like, oh, you mean, like, I should have thought of that 3 cell phones ago? Gee, thanks, kind of. And I'm like, what? The thing to me that baffles the fuck out of me.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just that we went to a high school where people didn't, like, fight and get picked on I mean, people got picked on a little bit, but, like,
it wasn't
not
high school
vicious bullying. Yeah.
Really bad, yeah.
And I really don't think our teachers would have tolerated that in the first place. But
like Christensen?
Oh no. Oh, he would have fucking destroyed people.
Like Werber?
Yeah. Like, come at me, Who was the one that wore the tight shirts?
Werber.
That was Werber, yeah. And I'm like, no, I was there one time when these 2 kids got in a fight over something and they knocked into me and knocked me down. Mm-hmm. I was standing in the lunch line and I was terrified because the 2 kids then got on the floor and they were like wrestling next to each other. And I was just holding my arms over my head being like, please don't punch in this direction, because I'm pathetic. And all of a sudden...
Sorry. That is not true, but sorry, go on.
I mean, I'm wily. I'd get a few hits in too, but like, I would go down pretty fast.
Okay, you're like, I am fucking prepared for a zombie apocalypse, but I am pathetic when it comes to punching. Don't.
Not when it's like... like people that, you
were in high school.
Then Werber all of a sudden comes over and just like picks them up.
Yeah.
And is like holding them and he's like, apologize to her. And they were like, we're sorry. And I was like, it's okay. And the kid behind me in line like helped me up and I was like, thanks, And the lunch lady was like, here's your mozzarella sticks. I was like, thanks. And like,
here's your ranch dressing.
It was ridiculous. But Werber, like, dragged them off. Like, it maybe was, like, a 15-second little brawl on the floor. Like, yeah. It felt like, forever in that second. But, like, it really didn't last very long at all. And he was on top of it, like, I don't know. But I'm like, for the sheer fact that these kids are not, like, reporting the bullying more. Like, they're,
people
like...
are breaking property.
Yeah.
Assaulting literally other children.
And I'm like... If you tell your school about it and they don't do anything, call the police.
Yeah, fuck that school.
Because fuck that school. Like, call the police.
Yeah. Do something.
Because they're like, well, if I say anything, it's just going to get worse for me.
So do something.
Keep calling the police then.
Yes.
Like, these kids are still harassing me. They're breaking my property. They're doing all this shit.
Yeah. Call the 400 other students who are witnesses.
Exactly.
Cool.
Like, most schools now, I mean, this is 2003, so later on they do have security cameras. Anyway, most schools now have security cameras everywhere. Yeah. And I absolutely would be like, if you fucking try to touch me, I will press charges against you.
Yep.
Do you want to have that? Like,
have fun with a criminal record, you football player, you.
Yes, like, do not. First of all, just don't bully. But, like, also, don't be a fucking puss either. Yeah. Don't be like, oh, if I don't agree with them, they're going to bully me harder. Like,
yeah.
Fucking something. Watch me.
Yeah.
Like, come at me. Anyway.
Long
rant over. let's see, where was I? Oh, so the goth girl runs off because she's upset, right? And the brother is trying to talk to the goth kid and tells him that it's dangerous to deal with spirits and that he doesn't know what he's doing. That he's like, you don't want to know what's on the other side of that door. And I'm like, okay, so you've dealt with ghosts before? Mm-hmm. Like, legitimately? Like, why are we not watching this movie?
For real.
Like, what? Like, for the sheer fact
why are we stuck in high school?
Right? For the sheer fact that they were called on possible paranormal activity and they weren't like, this is bullshit. We got to figure out what's actually going on. Yeah. They were like, oh, it could be a ghost.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so you guys have dealt with ghosts before. That is an indication then that ghosts exist in this movie's universe.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. So, like, that's what I was expecting to happen. But the screen just went black for a second.
That was scary.
That was scary. Please don't die, computer. But I'm like, why are we not watching that movie? Yeah. That's the movie I want to watch. Like, this one's okay for the... But I want ghosts. I want
you
real
watched
ghosts.
It for this for a reason.
Yeah.
So, you know.
And so anyway, the goth kid's like, Abel Fry is one of us, and he's like our only hope here, right? And so the goth girl goes running inside, and she happens to walk past the sister on her way to her locker, and she's like, I hope all of the popular kids die. And like, she said the people's names, but I didn't. She's, you know. And she's like, the sister's like, hey, listen, goth girl, her name's Crystal, but goth girl, she's like, I know you don't believe me, but I really do care about you. And like, I want you to be safe and stuff. And she's like, you don't care. And she's like, I really do. Like, you don't know me, but I do care. And she's like, yeah, whatever. And then runs off. And, that certain motions are in place and it's too late to stop it. You know, certain forces are in motion. And so the sister is like annoyed and goes to her next class, I'm assuming, because she just walks in, sets her bag down, and starts, like, looking for stuff. Okay. And then turns around because she hears Norman talking. And it's some kind of biology class. There's a bunch of animals in cages and stuff. And he's talking to a little mouse. It's a little cute white mouse, right? And he's just like, oh, who's my good little girl? Who's my good little girl? Right? And she's like, I mean, that's one way to get a girlfriend. And he's like, oh, I mean, you know, she's just a mouse. And she's like, I know. And like is teasing him a little, right? And so she starts walking around. And she sees there's a bunch of like tarantulas and snakes and stuff. And she's like, wow, this one's cool. And he's like, thanks. I got that one in Africa. She's like, this is your snake? He's like, yeah. And she's like, oh, well, this one's really cool. What's this one? He's like, it's a ball python. She's like, from Africa. And he's like, from the pet store. And like, so they're just kind of having a little, like, it's not terrible. Like, it's not a terrible movie. I enjoyed it for the most part. It's not the best plot, but like, the acting was decent. And the way they, like, gave some of the lines was fun and stuff. Anyway, so she picks up the snake and is holding it and, like, puts it around her neck. And he's like, oh my gosh, normal girls wouldn't do that. And I was like, normal girls wouldn't touch snakes. I'm not like other girls. And... But the snake does kind of start coiling around her neck, so he's like, "Okay, let's stop that. Let's put that away." And she's like, "Thanks." And then the orange dress girl comes in. She's not wearing an orange dress anymore, but she comes in and is like, "Oh, sorry," and then steps back out like they were making out or something, right? And so she's like, "Hey, wait," and like goes to go ask her something. So she runs out of the room, grabs her backpack, and I was like, "I thought you were going to class."
No.
So she follows her, and she's about to ask her something in the hallway, but the popular girl hears a noise in the vent, and she's like, did you hear that? And then they don't hear it again, so she's like, never mind, it's nothing. So then they keep going on their way. Later again at the RV, Dr. Weird comes in, Dr. Algernon. He's weird as fuck, okay? And he like starts coming in and stuff, and she's like, Dr. Algernon, I can't remember what she called him, but some radiology, something, I don't know. And he's like, ooh, I like that a lot. And like goes inside the RV. And so she's like, so did you find out what the crystals were in the in the straw? And he's like, sugar. It's sugar.
I told you.
Yep. And she's like, okay. And she's like, but why? And he's like, I don't know, as he's pulling out a banjo. And like,
wait, what?
He's pulling out a banjo because I guess he likes to play the banjo. So like, he's just pulling out the banjo.
Okay,
so he's sitting there,
Mr. Quirky character,
right? And she's like, okay, but why would they do that? And he's like, I don't know. I don't know why they would do that. I bet you'll find out.
Like, I think of like the sugar candy that comes in straws.
Yeah.
Like where the ends are crimped, but it's not a pixie stick. It's like a plastic.
Yeah. But no, it's just a straw with sugar stuffed into it. So like, okay. But anyway, he said there was also another substance mixed in with the sugar. And I'm guessing that's what he actually meant to say because I listened to the movie twice and I didn't hear them actually say that. Mm-hmm. But later on in the movie, I'm like, that's the only way it could have worked. Like,
Okay.
so it had to have been mixed in with the sugar, right? And he said it was some kind of preservative that they put on wood. Like, and she was like, what? And he's like, wood, wood, outdoor wood that they, like, that is exposed to the elements and bugs and stuff. And she's like, yeah. But, like, it's what they use to preserve the wood so that it doesn't get damaged from rain and snow and stuff, right? And she's like, what? And he's like, I don't know. So she's like, okay. So then she also puts in the audio recording that they got from the digital recorder. And heard some chanting on it. And it's chanting the fat boy's name after she does some, like, tweaking to it and stuff.
Great.
And the crazy doctor was the one who was like, oh, who do you know this boy is, like, Leonard something? And I was like, if you heard that from that recording, you, like, I know you already work for the government, but you should be working for the government. Like, because I could not understand what they were saying at all. It was like, he's an apple, and I'm like, what the fuck? So, like, it was bad. It sounded like they were trying to talk backwards.
That's what it sounded like.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's not, wow. So,
all right.
Yep. And it immediately goes to the fat kid who's in shop class, right? And the other kids are like, oh, hey, heard the ghost coming after you. Hey, when you die, can I have your girl? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, who the fuck is dating him?
Who is the girl?
Who is the girl? Like, we never see the girlfriend ever. And I have no
Maybe it's a joke.
Probably.
Because he's single.
So he immediately starts hallucinating and sees Abel Fry and stuff and passes out in the middle of shop class. So the family thinks that they should shut down the school because now this is the fourth football player that's, had a reaction. And thinks that the school should be shut down, but the principal's like, we can't until we find more evidence because this is just, like, there's not enough evidence. It's just kids passing out. Why are we shutting down the school kind of a thing? And I'm like, I mean, she's not wrong.
But also coincidence?
Yeah, like,
come on.
Yeah. But she can't, because it's all, like, the kids that hang out together, so maybe they are on drugs, maybe that,
Yeah.
So the school board is like, we can't just shut it down, and half the parents are like, I want my kids to graduate on time, so, like,
I guess, but, like, do you also want them to die? Yeah,
but, I mean, they're not the popular kids, so they're safe, right? So, anyway, so they decide to search, or they searched his locker and found the same stuff, and they're like, well, who else could possibly be the next target? And the sister's like, probably Blake. He's on the football team and, hangs out with those kids, right?
Yeah.
So they go and search Blake's locker, and he's like, this is bullshit. You guys shouldn't be looking in my locker. And they're like, it's for your safety kind of a thing, And he's like, right? So they start looking in the locker, and they find the straw, okay? And the dog starts reacting to the straw. This time. Okay. And they're like, fuck, right? So they bag it and stuff, and then they find the hangman, like, scratched onto it. So the principal's like, okay, Blake, you're gonna have to take a couple of weeks off of school. And he's like, what? This is bullshit. And she's like, no, it's for your safety. And he's like, ugh. And I'm like, every other kid in the world would be like, fuck yeah, I'll take time off. My friends are dropping like flies. Like, okay.
Thank you. See ya.
Thanks, bye. So he's annoyed, but he takes some time off of school. They also find his wallet in the locker and find another $50 bill. And the dog also freaks out about the $50 bill.
Why are they not asking Blake about this?
Right?
He is alive
and standing right there.
And
standing right there.
Okay. You're like, where'd you get this straw, son?
Yeah. So they bag up the straw and stuff. And later at the RV, Blake shows up to the RV.
Okay.
And is, like, starting to talk to the sister. And he's like, oh, yeah, one of the popular girls told me where you were staying and stuff. And she was like, do not be dissing on my house. And he's like, no, I think it's great. I think anywhere you live is great. I mean, I think anywhere, So he's obviously...
I think it's wonderful. You're wonderful. What?
Yeah. Like, it's very much that, right? And so she's like, do you just want to go for a walk? Because she's not going to invite him into the RV, right?
Yeah.
So they go for a walk, and they do a very poppy song playing in the background, and I thought for a while that it was Madonna's Don't Tell Me, like, it's just something that you do.
Oh, okay,
that was really bad, but, like, I could not think of the song forever. I had asked my sisters, and they, like, found it in, like, 2 seconds, but, like, because I googled the lyrics, and it just kept trying to give me Ed Sheeran or Willie Nelson, and I was like, that's not...
Very far from.
Yeah, that's very far from. But, like, it sounded like if you go home and listen to that song, that's what this one basically sounded like. I thought it was that song for a good minute, and then I was like, oh, this isn't it. So I tried to Shazam it, and they wrote it for the movie, I guess.
Wow. It is 2003.
Yep.
Okay.
I was like, they can't even afford a Madonna song. So they're walking around for a bit, talking to each other, getting to know each other a little bit more. And she asks if he's worried that he's next, and he said that he should be. He's like, I've done a lot of things to those goth kids, and it's not fair. and that he's been pretty mean to some of the kids, and she asks what they ever did to him, and he says nothing, and he should know better because any prejudice is stupid. Oh, Blake's black, by the way. And I'm like, oh, Blake black. It's just, I don't know. Like, every time I was writing Blake in my notes, it tried to autocorrect to black, and I was like, someone's prejudice here, iPad. But, like, very much like, prejudice is stupid all around kind of a thing. And she starts like, oh,
I love that.
Yeah, you're so... Anyway, so they start walking back to the house, or to the RV, and they're holding hands and stuff, and just kind of talking and everything, and then Boone leans out the window and is like, daughter of mine, and... Oh, no, wait, that didn't happen just yet. Anyway, so they're talking for a second, and he's like, oh my gosh, and looks down, and she has a black widow crawling on her jacket because they were just walking through the woods. So she brushes it off really quick, all like, oh my gosh, right? And he leans in and kisses her. And I'm like, not the moment, sir.
No.
Not the moment. She was just about to become Spider-Man, and you just like, what the fuck?
That's weird.
And I was like, yeah, maybe not the time. And right at that exact second is when Boone leans out, and he was like, daughter, excuse me, this goes out, what is happening? And Blake is like, oh shit, that's your dad, kind of, and then he was like, wait, the janitor's your dad? And she's like, it's a long story. And he's like, okay, like,
why does it have to be a long story?
Right?
Why can't you just say yes?
Yeah, he's my dad, and so anyway, so he leaves, and they're having a little sit down and stuff, and Boone is like, Alicia, you're not supposed to get close to the, our subjects like this kind of thing, he's like, any of these kids are suspects right now kind of a thing. And she was like, why am I not allowed to have friends kind of a thing? I just think I should be allowed to have friends. And they're like, you're allowed to have friends, but all of these kids are suspects.
Maybe don't kiss your friends.
Yeah, like just... And so she gets mad and like huffs and leaves, right?
Sure.
But the parents are also like, oh, well, we also have to take some things over to the crazy doctor anyway, so let's go. And they're like toting out these really big, they're big totes, like pretty big totes. There's like 3 things in each tote, right?
Okay.
And I'm like, what the fuck? Anyway, so the mom and the dad are talking for half a second about how, she's kind of right. She should be allowed to date people, kind of a thing. And
But also no,
not right now. And the dad was like, I don't know. I see a lot of myself in that boy, and I just get concerned, And she's like, it took me 20 years to get you to be the man you were today, kind of a thing. She's like, do you remember when we first started dating? You didn't even know how to pray. Ha 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 ha. And I was like, what? Like, why do they keep weirdly making this religious at moments? Like,
yeah.
Weird. I have no idea.
Don't push your morals on me, movie.
Right? So I just thought it was just, okay, like.
It's, it'd be one thing to be like, I turned you into this man, but why?
I don't know. It was weird. Anyway, so they drive off, and the twins are doing some more research later into the school, and they're trying to figure out more about Abel Fry and more about kind of stuff, when they get a phone call, and the fat football player is lapsed to level 2. I don't know what that means, but apparently it's really bad because it's like 3 weeks faster than the other football players did, kind of a thing. And so it's like progressing faster than the other ones were.
Yeah.
And but then she suddenly goes, oh crap, I have to go change out the digital recorder at the school. And the brother's like, oh, you want me to come with you? And she's like, no, it's fine, I'll just go do it really quick. And he's like, oh, are you sure? Because I can, we can go do that and stuff. And she's like, no, it's fine. And she's like, oh crap, where are the keys to the car? Because she's not going to take the RV, they have a little car,
Yeah.
And he sees the keys and like hides them. And he's like, I don't know, you want me to help look for him? And she's like, no, it's fine, I'll just run to the school. And I was like, well, how far are you from the school?
Yeah.
Anyway, so she takes off and goes to the school to go change out the recorder and stuff. And the brother at that like next couple of minutes finds Abel Fry had a sister who was older than him, and he lived with her for a while. So he decides to go not interrogate, but like question the sister. And it's like pretty late at night already too. But he takes the keys, like he's gonna go get in the car and stuff, and is like, okay, we can do this. All right, okay. And he goes to start the car, and he's like, all right, think about it, assess, decide the best like course of action here. And then you see a car driving, and it passes, and he's on a scooter. And he's like, and I'm such a loser. And I was like, yeah, but a loser who didn't want to mess up, just...
Yeah.
It was a good idea, kid.
That's
like,
funny.
don't drive when you can't drive,
Yep.
But he's, like, sneaking around this house outside. He didn't just walk up to the door and be like, hello, can I ask you some questions, you know?
Yeah.
No, he's sneaking
Let's
around the house.
trespass.
Yeah. Runs into a spider web, freaks out, and then runs so fakely into a swinging, like a swinging tire.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and he's like, like hanging onto it like fucking George of the Jungle for half a second. I was like, okay.
Oh.
But he gets up and immediately there's this fucking rifle pointed to the back of his neck. And he's like,
Good.
oh my gosh. And he turns around and she's like, what are you doing on my land? Kind of a thing. Like very like, what are you know, and he's like,
get off my property.
Yeah, and she's like, oh, I'm looking for Abel Fry's sister, and she was like, well, who's asking? And he's like, a friend, and she's like, I ain't got no friends, kind of a thing, and he was like, oh, okay, well, are you his sister, kind of a thing, and she's like, what do you want to know, and stuff, and he's like, very seriously, because he's very like, you got a gun on me, kind of a thing, and goes, will you tell me about the kid that hurt so much he died to stop it? Like, very seriously, like,
nobody talks like that.
Yeah, and I was like, what the? Anyway, so she lets him into the house and like is giving him tea, and he drinks way too much of it. He's just like it's really stupid. So she starts telling him about how Abel was bullied like a ton, and she didn't know he'd been bullied until he killed himself because
people don't talk about their feelings.
And it just kept showing like these little like sepia tone clips of him getting bullied and everything. And he was like, well, what about the girl that he murdered? And she's like, he didn't murder her. She died of meningitis, and she was his only friend. And it was just the story that got
meningitis.
I know. I was like, what?
Okay.
Yeah, and
what year is it?
I have no idea. And so she was like, but she was his only friend and stuff, and that she hates all those bullies for what they did to her brother and what they did to her family because her family, you know, because she had her husband and her son and stuff. They were all traumatized from Abel killing himself, right? Mm-hmm. And she's like, I'll never forgive them, kind of a thing. Well, the brother decides to go find the sister at the school now, but we don't know that. But the sister's at the school, and she starts hearing, let's see. I think I skipped a part. I did, but we'll go back to the second. So the sister is at the school, and she starts hearing noises again after changing out the tape. So she follows the noises down to the boiler room and gets into the boiler room. Mm-hmm. And she finds an open tunnel and starts crawling through it into another room. So it's like on the other side of the wall. Gets into this other room where they got this big pentagram on the ground and like deer and animal skulls all over the walls and stuff. And like the candles are all lit and like they've got pictures of all the football players they've been targeting on the wall and stuff.
So lots of evidence.
Lots of evidence,
cool,
yes.
Cool.
And a row of like masks and hoods and stuff, right? Like cloaks and everything. And so she's touching them like, oh my gosh, okay. But there's like 5 or 6 of them. So she only checks the first couple and then continues to like walk around.
Don't do this to me.
Right? And one of the masked hooded people attacks her, you know?
Yeah.
And starts grabbing at her. So she freaks out and bites his arm really bad. And it's him because he yells like a dude. And so bites him really hard and then manages to escape and like get out of there. He's like chasing her down a lot too. Jeez. But she manages to get out and runs into the brother like outside. And so they turn around and they call their dad and have their dad come back in. But earlier at the crazy doctor's office, they were investigating the straw and they find there's a dark spot in the straw this time. So it's not just an empty straw, there's something in it. So they cut it open and they find it's body parts of an insect. And they're like, what the fuck? So the crazy doctor's looking at it and he's like, oh, this is a thorax of a something scientific-y name, right?
Sure.
And they're like, what? And he's like, it's a male spider kind of a thing. And they're like, okay. And that's about it that they found right there. So, okay. So then the dad comes back to the school with them and they go find the boiler room. But she takes them to the exact spot where she found the hole, but suddenly the hole's not there anymore. And she's like, no, there was a hole right here. And the dad was like, are you sure it was right here? Was it around the corner? Was it over here or something like that? And she was like, you don't believe me, do you? And he's like, no, I do believe you. And I'm getting worried because this is the second time you've been like attacked here at the school. So you're going to go stay with your grandma. And she's like, what? No, dad, like we want to help the kids and everything. And he was like, no, I think you need to go stay with the grandma. And the brother's like, dad, no, we're so into this. We're so close to figuring this out. They have no fucking clue what's going on, right? No. And he goes, okay, one more day. And if you guys can't, like, if we can't figure this out in another day, like it's going to, you know, you're gonna be done, kind of a thing. Okay, so the next day at school, the cop, Boone, and the principal are interrogating the goth boy, and they're like, you attacked the girl in the basement, kind of a thing, right? And he's like, what? Why would I do that? Kind of, you know, and they're like, because you've been sicking the ghosts at yada yada, right? And he's like, I didn't do that. And so the cop's like, let me see your arm, and like yanks the jacket up, and he doesn't have a bite mark, right? And he's like, oh man, why would, you know, the sister do this to us kind of a thing. I thought she kind of liked us, right? Anyway, so he goes off. We see the kids in the masks again, like a minute later, and they're all chanting in the basement, starting a new ritual, and this time they're doing it for the sister. So they're going to sick Abel Fry on the sister this time, right? And then immediately after, Nerdy Boy is trying to get some, he's trying to put a dollar into the machine, okay? But, like, sticks it up, like, it doesn't go in, so he starts pushing the return money button. And she starts walking past, and he's like, oh, hey, Alicia, do you have change for $1? The machine's broken again. She's like, oh, yeah. So she pulls some quarters out of her jacket pocket and gives it to him. And he gives her the dollar, and she just stuffs the dollar in her jacket, right?
Yep.
And so he was like, thanks, you know, you're like the only nice person at this school kind of a thing. And she was like, oh, I don't know about that. I'm sure, you know, like, there's lots of nice people. And he's like, not really, you know. And so she's like, okay, and then leaves to go back to whatever she was doing and stuff. So she's at her locker, like, putting her jacket and her bag and stuff in there. And the goth girl comes running past her to her locker, sobbing. And she's like, oh my gosh, Crystal, what's wrong? And she's like, one of your friends dropped a soda on my head. Isn't that so funny? And she was like, Crystal, that's not okay. You need to tell somebody. And she was like, what are they going to do about it anymore? You know?
Yeah.
And she's like, and you don't even actually care. And so the sister's like, I do care. And she goes over and grabs her jacket and she gives it to the goth girl. And she's like, here, use my jacket. Keep my jacket. Just, you know, she's like, I want you to know I care about you. Like, they can't keep doing this to you kind of a thing. And I'm like, you're not telling them to back the fuck off. So, like,
yeah.
You know, I mean, I guess she's still undercover, so she's trying to figure shit out. But I would have been like, yo, fucking stop it, guys. And stuff. Anyway, this is long. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
There's still a lot to go. But so the goth girl, like, takes it and is like, okay, and then runs away, right? And she's just, like, really upset, you know? But she goes to the soda machine and she finds the dollar in her pocket and, like, puts the dollar in and gets a soda, right? And I'm like, so the machine wasn't broken? Okay.
No,
wasn't broken. But also, you just fucking took her dollar.
Yeah.
I mean, it's $1, but like...
She's probably like, you're dying.
Yeah, right. And I'm like, okay. So then they're back at the crazy doctor's office, and the mom and the crazy doctor are there because Boone's still at the school and stuff. And the mom is supposed to be an undercover counselor at the school.
Okay.
She didn't counsel one fucking kid.
No.
Like...
I was actually wondering, like, what her job was in all of this, because she has not done shit.
She didn't done shit. Okay. Yep. She was just conveniently there for a couple of moments and then didn't have to be there for the rest of the movie. So
cool.
Yeah. Also, I love that they were like, oh, by the way, everyone, we have a new counselor, a new janitor, and 2 new students at the exact same moment. They all look like each other, but that's fine. Like,
no big deal.
No big deal.
Nothing weird.
Like, anyway. So they're at the crazy doctor's office, and they're talking about the straw holding the remains of a brown recluse spider.
Ew.
Mm-hmm. And she was like, well, could this be what's been causing, like, the reactions of the kids?
Norton spiders.
And they were like, he's like, no, the bite of a recluse spider is way more of like, is flu-like, so you're not hallucinating, you're just, you know. And she's like, okay, well, let's keep running tests and stuff. And the doctor starts to think that it's pheromones that the dog is hitting on, because the dog can sense other animal pheromones kind of a thing. So they start running it and they find out that, yeah, it is spider pheromones that the dog's been hitting on. So they decide to, like, test the money and test the straw, and it's the same thing. But again, back at the school, they do a lot of back and forth, So anyway, at the school, the brother is trying to sit with the goth kids during a play rehearsal, and I want to know what fucking play they're doing, because there's like the fucking what are they called? Where they go and they actually have the the hangings and stuff. It's not a guillotine. Is it a guillotine?
Oh, gallows?
Yeah, the gallows. Thank you. Yeah. So they have a gallows set up there, and all of the kids are like dancing around in these weird black cloaks and just like dark music and stuff, right?
Makes me think of down at Thriller, where they do like the ghost hanging
ballet
dance.
Oh, I love that one. That one's so good. But they don't do that one anymore. They started doing the stupid superhero dance, and I'm like, fuck that dance. It's dumb. It's cute. It was cute the first time. It's not cute anymore.
No.
Anyway, so they're doing the play rehearsal. It's not the actual play. It's just a rehearsal. And I guess kids can go and watch the play rehearsal. Anyway, during school. So the brother's trying to sit with the goth kids, and they all get up and move away from him like, oh, you're not one of us kind of a thing. Like,
okay.
And except for the girl who's sitting there trying to draw, but she keeps like messing up with her pencil. Like, she can't even like hold her pencil correctly. And it's just freaking out. So the goth kid comes over to her and he's like, hey, come on, like, come sit over here, kind of a thing. And she starts like hallucinating and freaking out, saying the overexposure things. And she's like, no, Abel Fry, no. And he was like, what? No. And starts yelling to Abel about how she's one of them and you can't take her. She's all I have. Like,
but she's wearing the jacket.
Yeah. And so the school's freaking out, you know? And so they decide, like, oh, okay, it's not the popular kids anymore. We should shut the school down, kind of a thing.
Okay.
And, so they rush her to the hospital, and all this is kind of happening, I think, in the same day. Anyway, so Boone and the sister are looking through the goth girl's locker to see if they can find the straw or the hangman, and they can't find any of that stuff. Mm-hmm. So they're like, why was she targeted? We can't find any of this. And she's one of the goth kids, like, you know?
Yeah.
And they just can't seem to figure out what's going on. But they decide we need to shut down the school. Like, this needs to shut down. So the principal starts evacuating the classrooms and getting everyone into the auditorium so that they can, like, wait until the buses get there because she wants to make sure all the students are there. Yeah. And then they'll shuttle the kids out and to get on the buses and go home, which is actually really smart to do it that way instead of just being like, everyone stay in class until the buses get here. Like, for what's going on, it was really smart. Anyway, Blake happens to rush into the school, even though he's still kind of technically suspended. It's not suspended because he's not in trouble, but like, yeah. So he rushes in.
Forbidden, if you will.
Forbidden, yes.
Yes.
So he's forbidden. And, the sister, he runs up to the sister and he's like, I'm going to find the goth kid and I'm going to stop him. He can't keep doing this. And she was like, what? No, Blake, come back. And like chases off after him, right? But he's gone by the time she follows after him and stuff. And she starts hearing weird, like, coming from the vent. And that's the noise they've been hearing a lot throughout the movie. So she starts like, I'm going to see what this is, and like runs off to their RV or something, whatever, where they have a bunch of their equipment and everything, and brings it back to the vent. And all of this is happening at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And she runs off to go do that, and it shows the kids back in the auditorium, but they have the curtains closed again because they were just doing play rehearsal, but they closed the curtains. And the goth kid is standing up on the gallows, like yelling out to Abel. He's like, face me, Abel, like, we need to talk, you can't take Crystal from me, she's all I have, and just yada yada. And the brother finds him and is like, hey, get down, man, like, you really think this is a ghost doing this? You really think this is a ghost? Like, some stupid ghost. He says it way too many times, and I'm like, shut up. Anyway, so Abel decides to put the fake noose around his neck.
No.
And is like, come on, Abel, is this what you want, kind of a thing. And I was like, why
would you joke? Why
would you even like think that that's what he wanted? Anyway,
yeah.
For some reason, the curtains open, and he's standing there with the noose around his neck with the whole school now watching him, right?
Of course.
And like dumb fucking kids, they start, jump, do it, jump. And he's like, and they have like this rock music. It's actually pretty nice rock music. It's kind of cool. And they're like rock music playing and stuff. He's just like, and everyone's yelling at him, and the brother's like, don't do it, shut up, listen to me, like, pay attention to me.
Imagine the trauma,
right,
from that moment,
right?
Oh my god.
And like, and some of the kids are like, oh my gosh, no. And like, there's like the fat girls being like, jump, and I was like, you should know. Like, anyway, I'm like, I bet you're fucking bullied too, so just shut up. Anyway, so, and there's a lot of kids that are like more popular looking. They're like, oh my gosh, what is he doing? Like, kind of, anyway, so they see this happening. Blake sees it and rushes the stage, and Boone and the principal come running up too, and he just steps off and starts getting hung, right? But Boone and the brother grab him really quick, and they push his legs up so that he's not just hanging, and Blake like fucking gets up there, man. He's up there really fast and like yanks him up. So he like pulls him up and gets the noose off of his neck, and the goth kid's like, oh my gosh, did you just save my life? Kind of a, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, good job, Blake, you know? So then the sister who went and got all the supplies puts a little camera in there, like one of those long extendable cameras. Yeah, scope cameras in there, and doesn't see anything. So she puts on a hazmat suit, which I'm like, why would you think to put on a hazmat suit?
I mean, maybe if she knows that there's like substance.
I don't know. She doesn't know that, but I'm like, I mean, I guess it's an old school. I would absolutely be like, it's full of asbestos, you know? So she puts on the suit, and I'm like, plus you're also crawling through like dust and all this like gunk and...
Yeah, I guess.
Anyway, so she puts on a hazmat suit, and she crawls in through the vents, right? Then it flashes back to the crazy doctor's office, and he finishes running some tests on the bunny, and he was like, I bet all we're gonna find is female brown recluse spider pheromones and stuff, right? And that's probably all we're going to find. If it's something else, then we'll be worried. But we're not worried right now kind of thing. Except they find out that it is African spotted wolf spider pheromones. And he's like, I'm worried. I'm very worried. And she's like, what? And he's like, well, an African spotted wolf spider that are from Kenya that aren't native to America.
What a little bitch.
Yeah, are cause hallucinations and they cause like, and then, what is it? Dementia and then death. Oh, if they don't get, like, administered the anti-venom kind of a thing.
What a little bitch.
I know. And he says that it's an old African war tactic where you give your enemy a gift, but it's laced with the pheromones, and then you get a male wolf spider and you put them close to where the victim is, and the wolf spider will go and will crawl up the victim looking for its mate kind of a thing, but not finding a female will then get agitated and will attack. So it'll then bite kind of a thing. And so he starts like going off about playing with spiders and yada yada. So what he thinks has been happening is that whoever's been doing this is actually lacing the $50 bills with female wolf spider pheromones, and then is then placing a male wolf spider into the straws and putting them into the lockers. But the spiders, when they start to smell the pheromones, will eat through the sugar to get out, and then will just like attach themselves to the clothes of the person, right? But they're also, when they eat the sugar, they're eating whatever the other substance was that they used to like treat wood and everything. So it kills the spider after like 24 hours, and nobody's gonna be like, oh, it's this dead spider on the floor, you know? Like, so...
What is this child?
Yes. But he thinks that the straw that the dog's been hitting on is laced with female pheromones. So he thinks that whoever put the female in the straw put it in by accident. So it was supposed to be a male, but they put a female in who then started like spreading her pheromones in it. This is everything he said. Okay. And so she's been trying to attract some kind of a mate, and any mate. So the brown recluse spider crawled into the straw and they mated, and then she ate him and then escaped out of the straw, right? So she probably got into the vents and started laying eggs, and they started like multiplying, and they multiplied really fucking fast. And so now there's this hybrid of an African spotted wolf spider and a brown recluse going around making a fuck ton of babies. Like,
good.
Yeah, and at that moment is when we start seeing spiders everywhere across the school. But they're all fucking tarantulas. So like it's 2003, nobody knows what spiders look like. Anyway, so
no one knows science back in the day.
Yeah. I mean, when I first watched this, I was like, ooh, those are some spooky looking spiders. Like,
No one knows what spiders look like.
Yeah. So we see the goth kid sitting with the brother saying that he's just like, I just don't know what got a hold of me earlier. And the brother's like, or who got a hold of you? And I was like, no, fucking, you just said the ghost was stupid. Stop with the ghost shit, right? Yeah. Anyway, so the mom calls Boone and tells him that it's spiders and that they need to evacuate the school. And he's like, okay. And we start seeing more and more spiders crawling out of the vents and soda machines, and they're all fucking over. And the sister's climbing through the vents in her hazmat suit, and she like moves something to try to like keep climbing lower, and instead is met with a fuck ton of CG spiders, but like spiders nonetheless. So she freaks out and starts crawling up, doesn't close the fucking vent thingy.
Of course.
So they start crawling after her, and they're all like, get her, guys, get her, kind of like chasing her down, and she's like climbing up the vent as fast as she can.
Ugh.
And gets into the attic kind of a thing. And anyway, so then Boone, in the next like 5 seconds, managed to get a doctor, the black cop, he was black too, but like the black cop and the principal, and he's like, we need to quarantine the school, and we need to like get the kids to safety. And he says to the cop, can you make sure that no student leaves this building without first being searched for pheromones and or spiders? And the cop is like, of course, that's my job. I'm like, no, it's not.
No, it fucking ain't.
That ain't your job, sir. Like, that's not. Anyway.
Oh, boy.
But they were like, but how are we supposed to do that? And they all look at Max, and Max is like, hi. And so I'm like, oh, Max.
I have just met you, and I love you.
Yep. And I'm like, oh, Max, you keep doing you. You're the only one doing any work around here.
That's his job.
Yeah, so they get all the kids lined up, and they're not telling them what's going on because, nobody. Why would you ever do that? Because I personally, if somebody was like, so the school's infested by spiders that are definitely going to, like, fuck you up, I would have been like, bye!
Yeah.
So And I'm not even that scared of spiders, but I would be like,
yeah,
I'm out of here. So they've got all the kids in a line, and the dog is sniffing everybody, and the brother's holding the dog's leash and is like, hey, you're good, you're good, you're good, you're good. And they've set up this like quarantine zone outside. They've got like ambulances showing up. There's a lot of medical things and a lot of police, and all the kids are like, what is happening, right?
Yeah.
But one of the goth kids, well, he was one of the nerdy kids before, trying to be goth. He literally just like put on a black bandana and
look out.
Yeah, look out. I'm so goth, right? But like yanks it off being like, oh man, what's going on kind of a thing. Well, the dog hits on him. So they're like, oh, grab him, get him out of here. And he's like, what's happening? What's going on? And so they get him outside and they start yanking off his clothes and they find a spider on him. So immediately they like put a gas or like an oxygen mask on him, and another cop comes up and starts spraying him with something. I don't know what he's spraying him with, but some kind of like spider repellent kind of a thing. And he's fine. He didn't get bit, but he's like, oh my gosh, like freaking out.
2319.
Yeah, like it's just freaking out. So you're like, oh, okay, so the spiders are literally fucking everywhere. However, it was on his skin, and I'm like, and it was here. It was like the size of my palm.
Yeah, how do you not
and I'm
feel
like,
that?
Anytime I feel like a hair brushing against my arm, I'm like, you know, like, ooh, because I got stung by a bee one time because it was on my arm and I didn't like realize what it was until I went to brush it off and it was a bee, and I was like, it didn't like, it barely hurt, but like still, like, it didn't sting me very well.
You
like there
noticed
was, yeah, I noticed it, right? For some reason, the mom is back at the RV, and she's on the phone with the doctor, and the doctor's like, hey, we've got anti-venom coming. However, we're going to have to modify it a little bit to include brown recluse venom because
they're half-breeds. Yeah.
So we have to figure that out. And for some reason, the mom puts the digital recorder, like, recording in the computer to listen to it while she's driving the RV. And I'm like, why are we doing this right now? Like, Anyway, as she's driving, she hears them chanting her daughter's name, which we already fucking knew she was a target, but now the mom knows.
Yes.
She, like, busts bat out of hell the RV over to the school. And the sister, it flashes back to the sister who climbs up through the vent, and she's now in the attic, like the very attic-y attic, right? Mm-hmm. And finds the noose that Abel used to hang himself, just still hanging there. And I'm like, no
one cut that down.
Like,
took it for evidence.
In 10 years, nobody touched it.
It's forbidden.
It's forbidden, I guess, yes. But I'm like, it could be a fake one, but like, it was very obviously like, oh, you know, it's gotta be Abel's kind of a thing. Right then the mom makes it to the school, and she tells Boone that like they're coming after their daughter kind of a thing, and he's like, okay, well, you need to go help modify the anti-venom because apparently she can.
Yeah.
I don't know.
She's smart.
And she's like, but I need to find my daughter. And he's like, she's my daughter too. And she's like, okay.
You are so right.
Yeah. And I'm like, what? Yeah, of course he,
maybe he can't make venom antidote.
No, which I'm like, he's like, no, you need to do this thing. And she's like, but she's my daughter. And he's like, yeah, I got this though. Like, you know, I'm the big manly man. Let me go find our kid kind of a thing. Yeah. And so she's like, okay. And like runs off to go make the anti-venom and stuff. So Boone starts looking around the school trying to find her, and finds the area, like the vent that she had like crawled in through because all of their shit's still there. Mm-hmm. And is like, Alicia, like calling out to her so much and stuff, right? But she's upstairs, like in the attic kind of a thing, and finds a butt ton of spiders, like in cages and stuff, right? Like in like the little plasticky cages. And she starts seeing that there's like $50 bills sitting in some of the cages and stuff. So like obviously the pheromones are kind of a thing. And Norman suddenly walks in the room and he's like, it just had to be you, huh? And she's like, what? Fucking Norman, what are you doing here kind of a thing? And he's like, I just, I couldn't take it anymore, blah, blah, blah. I had to show them kids kind of a thing.
I had to kill some people.
Yeah, and what? Right, and he was like, it feels great to see the bad guy scared for a change. And she's like, yeah, you know about scaring people. And you glance down at his arm, and he's got the bite mark on his arm, right?
Yep.
Because and he's like, well, you didn't deserve it, but now you're getting too close. You know everything now kind of a thing. And she was like, I don't know everything. What are you, like, And he's like, no, the more we talk, the more you know, and just all this stuff. But he's going off about how he's like, I'm justified. The bullies deserve it. It's what I had to do to survive. My uncle didn't survive it.
Okay.
Yeah. So Abel Fry was his uncle who he grew up with, so yeah, he was
cool.
Yep. And I put dun dun, he's Abel Fry's nephew. And so she asks if the goth kids knew about this, and he says no, he provides the toxic shock and they provide the mania, right? And
it's funny because at the beginning when you said his name was Norman, I just thought of Norman Bates from Psycho.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. He's got the Psycho killer name.
Yeah, well,
crazy.
I'm just saying, if you're naming your kids nerd names, you're setting them up to be nerds, you know, kind of a thing. Like,
it's just science.
Zach had a neighbor named Journey, and she would get out of the house all the time. She was a little kid, like little, and the parents would always be out there like, Journey, and I'm like, you
did this to yourself.
You did this to yourself. She's doing what you named her to do. Like, what? Anyway, not saying everyone named Norman is a nerd, but like,
or a killer,
but like, yeah,
aren't they though?
Right. So he goes to chase her and like pulls out a knife and starts chasing her down, right? And she manages to get back in the vent where like all the spiders are crawling and shit. And so she's trying to avoid the spiders while she's going down, but slips and falls. Mm-hmm. And her dad she caught onto the ledge of one of the vents, and it just so happened to be the vent that she crawled in the first place. Mm-hmm. And her dad sees her and is like trying to reach her, but he's too big to fit in the vent, so he can't reach her. And she, the vent like collapses and she falls again. So she falls basically from like the attic to the basement.
Yeah.
Only breaks a leg.
Multiple stories.
Yeah. Only breaks a leg. Okay. But she falls right into the what she calls the witch's nest, where they've got the candles and shit, right?
Yeah.
So, and there's like hundreds of spiders crawling towards her now. There's a fuck ton of spiders down there. So the brother finds the dad, and they start like, oh my gosh, we gotta go find her and everything. And he's like, I think I know where she went. So.
Where she went.
Yeah, where she fell. And so they go and essentially find the boiler room. They're rushing down, and the gym coach gets attacked by spiders because he's like, oh, you people just scared of spiders, meh, and then gets bit. Norman gets down into the basement like way fucking fast. And the spiders are avoiding him. Like, every time he steps, they, like, move. Like, they're in, big herds get away from him kind of a thing. And he tells Alicia, the sister, that he's covered in male pheromones. And he's like, so the other males stay away because of how much I have on me. They think he's a big spider, right? But the females just don't give a shit. They're just like, it's a guy. So he cuts open her suit. Like, just, he's like, you know too much about me, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life in jail kind of a thing. And
that's not even, like, secondhand murder anymore. That's, like, straight up, you're killing people.
That's you killing people. Yep, and, like...
Cool.
Yep. Oh, yeah, the spiders start to crawl inside, and... he starts going on about how, he can't be in prison kind of thing because he's going to be stuck in there with more of the football player types that are just going to beat him up for the rest of his life. So he'd rather die. And he pulls out a Javan tiger spider, and I don't know what the fuck that is, but it just looked like they took a tarantula and painted it.
Yeah.
So, but the sister keeps begging him not to kind of thing, and he's like taking off his shirt as he's doing it and stuff. And I was like, eh. But she's like, don't do it, Norman, don't do it. And he's like, no, I have to. And then starts doing this weird poetically. I didn't even understand what he was saying because he was saying it so poetically. And it puts it on his chest and then like bops it so that it scares it, right? And so that it bites him, and he just kind of and like passes out. Well, the sister starts getting bit, so she starts hallucinating kind of a thing, and she starts praying, which, is fine, except she goes, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no fry.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
I got cringy goosebumps.
I know. I was like, oh. Yeah. So then the brother crawls through the vent because they managed to find that where the hole that Alicia had crawled through the first time was actually, they had taken the vent that was right next to it and moved it back into place. So they didn't even bother, like, moving anything. Anyway, so they thought, oh, let's move the vent this time and see if it's actually there, and they did. Yeah. So the brother crawls through wearing a hazmat suit and finds her and is trying to get her to wake up, but she's, like, covered in bites right now. We don't see that for a minute, but is, like, covered in bites, and she's like, Dad, I found her, and Boone starts breaking through a wall with an axe, okay? And there's some firefighters behind him and stuff.
That's his daughter.
But, like, he's like, like, going through it, and I was like, oh, Boone. Oh, Boone. Yeah.
You.
So they get her to, like, the med area and stuff, and they're trying to, like, pump oxygen and stuff into her, and she's covered in bites. Like, there's lots of bites on her and everything. And I'm like, everybody else, like, passed out immediately and, like, almost died. Like, she would be dead.
Yeah.
Dead. But they managed to have the anti-venom ready, like, just before that, so they came over and administered it to her.
Of course.
And the family starts praying, and they start playing some weird churchy music and stuff. And then they also show, like, the camera's kind of drifting away, and it shows Norman and the coach are also there getting administered to, and yada yada. And I'm like, yeah, but did they have Javan wolf spider, like Javan tiger spider venom available?
Yeah. No.
Did you modify it for that too? Like, whatever.
I mean, probably. Look how quickly
Seriously.
she was able to do that.
Yeah, like, we literally, they just go like, okay, half wolf, half brown recluse, shake,
Perfect.
shake, shake, done. Like,
Modified.
no, I feel like that would take months to figure.
Like
Anyway,
research.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No idea. So then the scene changes again to a bright sunny day, and Boone is flipping burgers on a grill, right?
Aww.
And the mom is like, oh, hey, are those burgers ready? Bring them over here. And they're having a picnic at the park, right? And we look over and we see the crazy doctors feeding bits of burger to ants and stuff. And she's like, am I feeding you or the ants? And he's like, oh, but these are blah, 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 blah ants. And she's like, what? And I'm like, you just modified spider venom.
You are smart.
You are smart.
You are a science.
And you didn't know what he just said. And the daughter goes, he means red ants. And I'd be like, I give me some lighter fluid and a lighter because
don't feed
fuck
those.
red ants. Yeah. But she's got a cast on her leg, so all she did was break her leg when she fell, kind of thing, right? But then they go off and they show that the brother, the dog, the football player, Blake, and the two goth kids are playing frisbee together, right? Except the two goth kids are no longer goth. They're wearing normal clothes. Because once you become happy, you stop being goth. Don't you know?
What?
Mm-hmm. Once you stop getting bullied, you stop being goth, right? So, like...
Okay, well...
Yeah.
Logic.
So they're playing, and Blake is telling the goth kid, he's like, that's not how you throw a frisbee, this is how you throw a frisbee. And so they throw the frisbee and stuff. And the whole time I'm watching this, so the goth girl and the goth boy are dating, okay?
Okay.
Every time I saw them do anything, any kind of interaction, she had more chemistry with the brother, and the goth kid had more chemistry with the sister.
Yeah.
And I was like...
But Blake,
though, like, I guess. But as they're showing this, Blake is talking about how the goth girl is actually a really great girl and stuff. And he's like, yeah, she is pretty awesome. She's my everything, And he was like, well, I mean, you better treat her well, because if I didn't have interests elsewhere, like, I might be interested in her, kind of thing. And he's like, I will fucking fight you for her, kind of, And then the parents are like, hey, everybody, the food's ready. Come on over. So they all run over and they're like, okay, yeah, we're getting together. And Boone goes, okay, let's say grace, which is,
At a picnic in the park.
And so they're like, okay, Blake, you say it. And he's like, what? And they're like, yeah, make the new kids say it. Ha ha ha. Just like being funny and everything. And so Blake goes, yo Lord.
No.
And the mom leans over to Boone and goes, sounds just like you. Like, I was like, what? He just goes, yo Lord. Like,
yeah. That's not how we talked the rest of the movie, is it?
No. He was very, like, normal sounding, but yo Lord. And then starts going off about how he's like, oh, we're thankful for the food, and thank you for healing my friends, and thank you for Alicia. And thank you, her dad, for not beating me up for just saying that. And, and the camera's just zooming away and stuff. And anyway, the end.
Okay.
Oh, and for getting Norman the help that he needs, too, during that prayer.
No, fuck that kid.
I know, fuck that kid. He intentionally was like, let me murder people.
Oh, okay.
So
did the goth kids really think it was a ghost?
I think so.
But he was like, let me be that ghost?
I don't know. I think he was like, he was like, hey, we're gonna start this little cult for Abel Fry, and like, he's gonna get him, kind of a thing. And the goth kids were like, yeah, he's gonna get him, and then he just did all the extra work for it.
And the hallucinations just all happened to be Abel Fry?
Yeah. Well, it's like Norman said, the goth kids created the mania. So the kids were all already under the assumption, like, oh, if I start hallucinating, I'm going to see Abel Fry.
Oh, yeah, but what about the first kid?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
I mean, we didn't see the first kid,
We didn't see the first kid. We see
but...
the third kid, yeah. And I'm like, okay.
Is this a horror movie, though?
No. It's like it looked at first like it's supposed to be a horror movie, and it's supposed to obviously be kind of like, oh, is it a ghost story or is it not, kind of thing. But still, to this point, the brother at one point was like, you shouldn't be messing with spirits, man.
Which means paranormal investigator person.
Yeah, which, like, then you've investigated spirits before. Yeah. Like, if nowhere else in the story...
Ghosts.
Yeah, nowhere else in the story did they go, like, it's never paranormal. There's always got to be something to, like, explain it, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But they were straight up like, okay, so this could possibly be a ghost. And I'm like, okay, if you didn't actually think it was a ghost... and this is the first time you're ever actually dealing with them, why would you not be way more of like, well, what could it be? Like, I don't think it's actually a ghost. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I'm so baffled by by a large chunk of that, where I was just like, I don't fucking care about spiders and this fucking goth kid. Like, what, the goth kid is
ghosts.
like, I wanted ghosts. I want a hangman ghost, not the gallows. We're not talking about that movie. That's a shitty movie. But I want a fucking kid who was like, I was bullied and I'm come back to get my revenge on bullies. Like,
yeah. Also, like, if you saw a straw sitting in your locker that you did not put there, wouldn't you think that was weird?
Yeah.
And, like, throw it away,
right?
or, like...
Something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, you don't see a spider crawling out to get on your person?
Right.
I don't understand.
I have no idea. And these African wolf spiders, they make it seem like they're pretty decently sized, you know? Yeah. I mean, obviously the males are small enough to fit inside a fucking McDonald's straw, apparently. But, like...
But everyone in the vent was, like,
they were huge! They were huge! Like, fucking tarantula size, and I was
Maybe they were, like, babies.
I don't fucking know.
I don't know.
So I'm just like, okay. I mean, it made a whole lot of sense. It's pretty ingenious to do it that way, because nobody's gonna be like, oh, a spider.
Let's check for pheromones.
Yeah, like, I don't know.
Okay.
Yep.
So what do you rate it?
I enjoyed it, for the characters. I thought the plot wasn't very good.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess I'm like that with a lot of movies, that the plot's just not very good and the characters are fun. The characters were pretty fun in this one, not gonna lie. Kind of stupid, but kind of fun. And Boone was my favorite.
Yeah.
Next to Max. Max was the best. Max was the best doggy in the world. So, and I mean, he was barely in it, but I was just like, no, Max, he's so good, you know? Boone was fun. The mom, her acting was not very good. She's been in a lot of things.
That's why she was in, like, 3 scenes.
Yeah, like, she would be like, but why is Max reacting to the $50 bill and not the straw? And I'm like, maybe because you don't fucking know how to talk. I don't fucking know. Like, you know, anyway. I enjoyed it for the most part. And even the crazy doctor, I was like, this guy is fucking weird. I enjoyed him more than I did, like, half the other characters, because he was just like, ah, like, half the time. And, like, he was crazy, but he
fit the character.
He fit the character, so.
All right.
Yep.
Fun.
It was pretty fun, though.
Nice.
I enjoyed it. Yeah. But also, it was really stupid.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Good. I feel like 2002, 2003 was just...
Yeah,
you know, that fits
and just
the tone.
Just all of the clothes,
bad fashion choices.
Yeah, just the fucking. And it wasn't just the wedges. It was the wedges that had like the braided, you know, like,
or like
around
studs around the
and like just. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And at one point the goth girl's running around with like this off the shoulder, like not wearing a bra, and I was like, you know how quickly you'd be pulled into the principal's office just for that outfit alone? Like, unless the principal is like, these kids get bullied enough, I don't give a shit. Like, you know.
Yes.
So I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I'm way more of a person that I think all schools should require a uniform, because then you don't have to worry about bullying kids for their clothes, and
they'll just find other reasons to bully them.
Exactly. But, yeah. You know. But I'm like, but then I would also murder you. So like, yeah. But then you wouldn't have to worry about the kids being like, well, I think that this shirt is appropriate, and you're like, well, it's not following the school rule. I'd be like, well, it's not uniform, so you can't wear it. Like,
true.
That's
Also, we know this kid went to Africa.
Yeah.
But how did he bring back animals?
I have no idea.
I don't think that's legal.
No, it's not legal.
Unless you're like a scientist.
Yeah, I don't have no idea.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yep.
Don't bully people, kids.
Exactly. Like, and I just... so I'm like, oh, okay, so we're not even going to talk about him being like an animal trafficker? Like,
right?
How did you get this snake and a spider here? And he was like... Not only that, you just created one of the like most deadliest hybrids in the world,
and the school was like, "Yeah, you can keep them here."
Yeah, like what? No. Yeah, they're straight up. We're like, yeah, there's all these super poisonous and venomous animals. And
Put
stuff.
them in the science room.
Yeah, they're good. Cool. Like, yeah, it's
okay.
Next to the rats, they're
Plot
fine.
holes, that's fine.
Yeah. So
I enjoyed it.
It was fun. Yeah,
good time. Hoping you guys did too.
Yes, and I was the whole time though. I was like, I wanted to be a ghost. So.
Yeah.
Yep. But anyway, thanks for joining us.
See you next time.
See you next time.